to share the same virtual stage as you all. I don't want to talk too long. I think a lot has been said. I simply want to build off what has been shared. So a lot of my experience in regard to Go and Yali comes from the Yali side of things. In my work, I fund a lot of young African entrepreneurs, and we source them through Yali primarily. And I kind of want to build off a few things, especially what Dana said in the beginning about kind of the missing middle. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs, and they're at varying stages. I think some of the previous panelists hinted at that some are young, they have ideas, but some actually do run viable companies. And they always have this issue of access to capital. How do they scale up? And so to date, in my time at the agency since about 2014, we've funded over 300 ventures in 35 different countries throughout the continent. So we've done ideation phase ventures in Senegal to agro-processing companies in Mauritius. So there's a wide range of investments. And all these investments really have a profound impact on them because most of these companies we fund are actually already cash positive, but they are not able to invest in themselves, maybe because they can't get access to finance via banks or other programs. So this is definitely an issue, and it's been well acknowledged. And I believe it was Gene Adams who was mentioning how we need to have a macro approach. Because you're right, what is great is when OPIC or DFC says they can get $8 billion to the continent, but it's also how are they going to do this? A lot of those programs come in $300 million loans or funding, but that does not get to the average African citizen. So how do we directly connect with them? So I know the work that I've done is funding these young African entrepreneurs directly. So let's kind of cut out the middleman. Let's only work with grassroots organizations that oversee African-led ventures for African communities. So I know that is one way that I'm trying to kind of address that missing middle. And I've been fortunate enough too to speak with the Biden campaign on quite a few of their policies going forward. And I think everyone on this call is in agreement. The current administration, the White House, doesn't really have any type of policy towards Africa. There's not much intentionality on their side. They're not really looking at the opportunity that it's presenting. So I think first off, the Biden administration and Harris, they will look to create a strategy, create intentionality that has been gone for these past few years. Little things that they can look to, raise travel bans. So having citizens travel easily from South Sudan or Nigeria, help with free trade. So I know AGOA, well, we all know it isn't perfect, but it has helped diversify in some ways, but how can we make something better? And one thing that I know I've talked with the campaign with, this idea of co-investment. Because you're right, and we've touched on this, that if we simply use aid, that's not going to fix everything. And even the way that America approaches it, right? It's going to view it as simply giving money. But let's not give money. Let's work together. How do we do co-investments? And that's something that the Biden-Harris campaign is really looking at, how to leverage diaspora. As was stated early on in the call, about I think 40 million, or I forget the number, in remittances a year. It's actually more consistent than aid itself, is remittances diaspora to the continent. So clearly we have successful, amazing diaspora members here. So how do we leverage that? Maybe issue diaspora bonds to help fund projects in their country of origin. How do we help make access to capital? How do we connect businesses in the United States directly to entrepreneurs in Africa to help source their materials or outsource technical assistance, whatever that is. And I do know that is one thing that the Biden-Harris campaign is going to focus, and they need to focus on, is how do we make these connections? How do we really leverage the diaspora? Because there's so much opportunity, both here in the United States, but especially in Africa. And I think it's that co-curation together, that we're not simply giving aid, but how do we build things together in that co-investment?